Heavens to Murgatroyd, we are back, boys.
Hello. HiGuys history back for another week.
What a delightful Sonic revelation this is.
Yes, indeed. For those of you who can't see me,
as in our four listeners,
we've got a slight problem in that our mic has just been completely deconstructed as we've come in.
Not gonna lie, it's like, I don't know, it's like post-hurricane in here. So there's been a natural disaster here.
It looks like my Lego set after my brother has about 5 minutes with it, you know. It's completely destroyed, taken to pieces.
I'm currently holding the microphone, doing my best, I don't know, Frank Sinatra impression.
He looks like he's
quite right.
fronting Glastonbury right here. It's quite entertaining.
As a spoken word poet.
And I'm not even sure if Harry's microphone is working because it's not picking up on the thing.
Is it picking up on mine?
Oh, good God.
Is it picking up on any of them?
Wait, Harry, try and speak.
Hello. No, it's not.
Oh, it is.
Kind of. Wait, hold on.
Go.
It's very delayed, isn't it?
Eat the mic.
Hello.
Okay, so it looks like Harry's mic's not working either.
Oh my. Is your mic working?
Yeah, it's working.
Harrison, say something.
Yo, that's working.
Harrison's is working.
Is it only Harrison's that's working?
Harrison's working.
That's right. Most important guest.
Oh, okay, right. Dino, do you want to come around here?
No, it's fine, Liam. Let's just...
Harry and I can share holding the mic.
Okay.
I can go across to him like an interview at a war
Like a
zone.
talking stick.
Already, this is the best episode yet.
1 week Saz is away and it's just descended into farce.
It's okay though. We'll get there.
That's fine. I guess how's everyone been though? Are we all doing well?
Good.
Yes.
We do have a guest on the show.
I was going to say, are you going to
We
introduce
haven't
our
actually
guest?
said that, so he's been on the show before. Mr. Harrison, care to introduce yourself?
Yes. Harrison Rice, RICE. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, Queen.
Yes, Queen.
The boy is back.
Well, Harrison and I did Ottoman Empire together, 1300, 1700, with me, Castretus. What modules are you doing this semester?
I'm doing War in the State and then the Military Revolution and that whole thing. I can't remember the years that you just had. That was really impressive, but I can't remember my years right now.
Wasn't it 1500 to 1700?
I think it's like 1565 to 17 something.
Okay. So modern.
Modern.
Early modern.
Early modern.
Basically.
Yes.
But, so, Harrison's back with us today, and he's going to be using all that knowledge in our episode where we talk about the evolution of warfare.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Many things.
Big fights. Big fights.
All that picked up.
Oh, yeah. So, indeed. But before all that, we have to discuss what happened this week in history.
Okay.
Does anyone have any little factoids?
Oh, I have a good one.
Certainly do.
Yeah. Harrison, want to kick us off?
Sure. On March 1st, 1932, Charles Lindbergh's son was kidnapped, and they found him. He was a baby. He was 20 months old. They found him in May of that year, and he was dead, and it was known as the crime of the century, and now it's why modern kidnapping laws exist in the United States.
So I don't know who were the Lindberghs a specific
Yes,
family?
yes. Charles Lindbergh was the first guy to fly over the Atlantic.
Across the Atlantic
Yeah,
Ocean,
and so he was a very famous guy. So these guys took his kid.
Sort of campaigned on an isolationist stance.
Yes.
Was in the 1940 presidential election, so that the USA shouldn't get involved in World War II. Thank God he lost, because otherwise we'd probably be speaking German right now.
Yeah.
Sure, he might not,
Yeah.
not be around.
What are you talking about? That's funny. Does anyone else have any others?
I'm just thinking about how hard Shores is going to type that into the small claims court
I
document.
completely forgot about the small claims court. Harry, could you take the mic while I open that up?
Yeah,
Claims
so,
court.
It's just a little jingle.
We really need a jingle for this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we do. Oh, explain the... Okay, well... Dino, do you want to go for it? Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying, Shores might not be here. There's nothing else to say. Like,
That's okay.
I might
Well,
not be
anyone might not be here. There was
It's
no
just
reason for it.
consequences, isn't it? Like,
Consequences.
Everything has consequences. It's like, it's the butterfly effect, isn't it?
It's the butterfly effect.
If you go back in time and kill a butterfly, we come back to today and Shores isn't here.
Yeah.
Somehow it happened.
St. Andrews could be one massive gulag. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Wow.
All right, okay. So if Lindbergh hadn't won...
Had one.
So,
He
to
did not
clarify,
win.
if Lindbergh had won the presidential election,
Then they wouldn't
His
have
son would be alive
to.
today.
St. Andrews would be a gulag, was what Harry said.
Some would argue. In
Yeah,
fact, no,
like,
I'm not
it
going to
was
go
very
there.
long-winded kind of reasoning.
Maybe another week we can go step by step through the whole process and work out exactly why St Andrews would be a gulag.
We've already done a what if history episode.
No, but next week we are planning to do a special on the Russian Revolution.
Oh, brilliant!
great. That's-
Why next
Brilliant.
week?
That's such a Saz idea.
It was that idea.
Yeah, of course.
We're all gonna come in
Filibuster
dressed as our
away.
favorite Russian revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Shogun Bukhara.
Oh,
Ah.
man.
I'll come in with an ice pick in my head.
Oh dear.
I can be Kamenev. You can be Zinoviev.
I
Kamenev to mine is Zinoviev, sure.
Oh yes, Mr. Sir. Does anyone have any others?
Yes. Today in 1875, the first ever recorded indoor game of ice hockey was played in Canada.
Oh, that's nice.
So one for all you Canucks out there.
That is
Jeez, oh Pete,
got a niche one.
go for it, my
the
friend.
1st of March in 86 BC.
He's desperately scrolling through
Oh.
the magazine right now, guys.
For those who can't
I
see,
may add.
I've got out the BBC History magazine,
Is that Zack Snyder over there making a prequel to 300?
and in 86 BC, the Roman general Lucius Cornelius Sulla captured Athens from the tyrant Aristian.
Say Aristotle.
Aristotle.
He was not a tyrant.
Yeah, not
pretty
quite.
good.
Explained. Yeah, that's. I also had some other random ones. I say random ones. That now sounds terrible. In 2013, Pope Benedict resigned.
I
Sad.
mean, that's not random.
And the Galactic
Sad.
Empire fell.
We've already had enough claims power related to the Catholic Church from last week. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not add on to that, boys. Come on.
In
Behave.
1922, the Supreme Court defended the rights of women.
So how exactly?
So, I think it just reaffirmed pre-existing bills about suffrage.
Okay.
That's good.
That's good, isn't it? Good boys. Good
Yeah.
boys.
Good boys.
Also, in
Judgy
Russia,
boys.
on this day, actually, in Russia, both the Emancipation Edict was signed in 1861 in Russia,
Yeah, yeah.
and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was
Ooh,
signed.
yikes. Good
in
thing we got out of that
1918.
one. That would have been.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's
So-
a busy day for the
It's
Russians.
a busy day for the Russians, even though we're not going to be covering them.
So we'll talk
Might
about it
be
next week at
Russian
some point.
This week, who knows?
Indeed. Shall we just change mid-show? No, no.
No.
Absolutely
Sounds would kill
not.
us.
Yeah, she would.
Guys, where's Russia?
Oh, okay. So, yep, okay, right. Shall we talk about war or something?
When we get to the meat of the meat of the
The meat and potatoes and
Yes,
veg
quite.
and
The
drink,
veg,
cutlery as well,
Just the meal in general.
crockery in general,
the lobster.
table mat.
That's without the starter as well.
And, well, usually I don't go
We've
for a
already-
starter.
We just had the hors d'oeuvres. Okay?
Oh, yes.
That was.
We got a table share, and I ate way too much.
Yeah, you took all our fettuccine, our.
I did.
Our prosciutto.
There's a little bowl of mussels, and I ate them all.
Yeah, we're very pissed off at you, Liam.
That's okay. We'll get over it in time.
We will. We
But
should.
yeah,
Because military history, you know, if there's anything that's going to get you over, you know, Liam stealing all the starters, it's a bit of military history.
but I guess the first thing that I came across with it was I was having a conversation with my old flatmate, and we got in a rather heated discussion about which wars had led to the greatest loss of life. Wars perpetrated by religion or those perpetuated by secular causes. And he was very much of the belief that it was secular war that had led to greater loss of life. And I was very much in the opinion that it was religiously motivated war that led to a greater loss of life. And it led to quite a heated discussion. But I don't know what you guys thought of it. And whether... Because it opened up this whole idea of like how it's justified and the violence of it and the time period. And it opened up questions about how it's evolved through the ages.
I suppose what would you define as a religious war?
And also the lines they're quite blurred, aren't
Yeah,
they?
exactly.
You know, a religious war, something that's considered in history to be a religious war, to many historians might have had many reasonable, well not reasonable, but many apparent secular causes as well. It's very rare that these wars happen for one lone, isolated reason.
Yeah, precisely. And in a lot of examples, religion's just used as an excuse.
Indeed,
like a
yeah.
justification for going to war.
So that was what I was. I think that was like how we tried to define it, was that wars fought for a religious purpose as opposed to those fought for a secular purpose. So like, for example, crusade and jihad, for example, versus the two world wars, for example. And most of the conflict in the 20th century.
Even on both sides, though, the Second World War, for example, it had fairly religious overtones.
How would you say that?
Because everyone was fighting for God's purpose. God was on their side.
Yeah, they
Well, apart from the Russians, obviously.
True.
I mean, even then, though, in 1940s Russia, because in the 30s and 20s, Russia had gone through a process of secularization.
No, you're right, but Stalin did seek to court the religious votes, try and keep them on
Yeah,
side.
so
Then
he-
just like completely knocked it down after the war. But
Yeah, so he realized that people would do better defending Russia, and within that embodiment of orthodoxy, far more than they would defend the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So he evoked religious tendencies, and likewise Britain and Germany both said that God was on their side.
Yeah.
So I guess the war itself wasn't fought on religious grounds. It just evoked that was more domestic sphere than anything else.
Certainly not in the sense that the wars were fought on religious grounds in centuries previous.
Oh,
You can't
yes.
say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Harrison, since you've been looking at more of like an early modern perspective, then have you noticed that how religion is justified takes on a more secular tone, or is it still kind of hark back to more the area that I'm studying at the moment, which looks at medieval conflict and how it's justified?
I think it takes on more of a secular tone, and as soon as you brought up this question, of course, I thought of the 30 Years' War, which a lot of people claim is like a bunch of princes fighting over Protestantism with the Holy Roman Empire. But then there's a lot of other moving parts to that. Like, for example, France comes in on like a more Protestant side, and then there's other Protestants who are fighting for a more Catholic side. So I think I think as time goes on, it becomes more secularized, and then religion becomes more of a backseat, I'd say. For example, we were just talking about the World Wars, how it was just more secular reasons, but they said God's on our side as well. So I think there's kind of a switch between the two.
There does seem to have been a transition between wars that seem to be fought purely on a religious background versus those that are secular in that sense. Like, there's always been secular conflicts, but normally we often see in the sources as like historicized as being like avenging injustice normally.
Yeah.
And that injustice may be breaking the law of God, for example.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shira?
I hate to get all
Oh no, here we go.
philosophically realist international relations on you, but
Here we go.
is all war not caused by just human nature? Question mark. And in that case, could you not say that all conflicts, regardless of what they claim to be fought for, are actually fought for the secular reason that humans like fighting?
Sure, this is furiously typing into the flames column here. You can't really notice that if you're listening. But yes, I think Liam, you raised a very interesting point there.
I feel like I
there is
may have
something
just
to do
taken
with,
everybody's main courses away and put them all in the bin.
your classical realist. Like, I feel like Machiavelli is sitting opposite me right now. It's quite incredible. Thomas Hobbes has popped in.
Yeah.
Hans Morgenthau's just sipping on his tap water.
Well, I guess it's like the whole... So would both the religious and secular reasoning that is evoked by sources just a facade?
Maybe not even a conscious facade,
Like
but probably, right?
They're just rather up for it.
If we all, I don't even completely subscribe to this view, but if just for the case of this argument we all do, then it's very clear that no matter what people think they're fighting for, they're really just fighting the root cause is just human nature.
Yeah, and you say they kind of use religion as a justification for human nature and their desire to control others.
Yeah.
Because that's an easier thing to sell, isn't it? God's on our side, we're doing this for God, as opposed to, we're doing it for my bank balance. Or
But like, I'm not even saying it's like a conscious thing,
Yeah.
In a way, they're getting tricked themselves because they believe that they're fighting for religion, and the truth is,
no, that's a good point actually. Yeah.
The problem with that is that how do you show it in the sources, I guess? Like, I haven't read Morgenthau extensively. So I don't know, or what's his name? The classical realist.
Kenneth Watts.
Yeah. How they justify that as, like, do they evoke historical examples, or like, because I'm just thinking like from a sources perspective. But then again, why would people just say in the sources, "Oh, we did it because we wanted to," and that was it?
Yeah, well, to pursue any sort of history with that mindset, you'd really need to ignore a lot of what the sources say and replace it with your own, often blind assumptions.
Well, yeah, you're trying to establish frameworks.
It's not very historical at all, which is why I apologised for bringing in the philosophical international relations.
No, I have
aspect
no
of
objections
it.
to that at all, Liam. You know me as a pure ale boy. I'm
Oh,
sure
I
you
know.
Finally made
I was
the-
really throwing you a bone, to be fair.
Well, yeah, I didn't want us to sort of trickle away into an IR debate. You know,
That's okay,
to
though.
Discuss history,
It's all right.
as we are contractually obliged.
Indeed, certainly. Well, I guess the other thing that so not only then do we see that perhaps causes are evolving, but also just war generally in how it's fought has evolved a lot. Like, I know that's a process that's ongoing, isn't it? Like, Harrison, you
Yeah.
have seen that in your...
Yeah.
And how...
For,
it
yes, for
evolved.
like, well, mine's more about like the introduction of like larger armies, larger navies, more like bigger fortifications, like harder to take forts, the trace Italian forts in Europe, and then the introduction of like gunpowder weapons and things like that into everyday armies, and like how cavalry went away. So yeah, so I think it's always changing. There's going to be I haven't gotten there yet, but there's a point where there's another military revolution, 1955 to like 2005, which is it's always
Really?
changing. Yeah.
They called the last 70 years or so a period of military revolution.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with like we were talking about how technology moves forward to being like how is it like an enabler of war, or is it like a deterrent? And I think it's more about the deterrent cause of warfare at that point, like for nuclear weapons and things like
I
that.
suppose...
Defensive realist kind of stance. Yeah.
So, could you explain that, Harry?
Well, just trying to kind of defend what you have, seeking to go to war for purely defensive purposes, as opposed to kind of an offensive realist stance, whereby perpetuated by many realist philosophers that you're essentially attacking because humans are naturally greedy and they want to kind of expand on what they have and constantly increase their own power and their own hold over other people.
Yes.
There's like an interesting point being brought up there which completely defeats what I was saying earlier, which is that there seems to be an implication there then that up until, when was it, 1955, technological advancement was to make war easier. And since then, it's to, in a way, to deter it by making it more difficult.
I think there's an argument there. I mean, I don't know, but like obviously following on from kind of the end of World War II, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, maybe it was finally revealed to people just how kind of devastating war could be. Maybe the penny dropped, 2 world wars in 30 years, and people were just like, wow, got to stop killing people. And as a result, they moved to a more of a deterrent kind of form of combat. Trying to deter people from going to war, trying to pursue other options. I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to think out.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because we're talking about the atomic bombs and you're killing like almost 100,000 people in the blink of an eye. I don't think anyone's ever can comprehend that.
And, like,
it's
innocent civilians.
yes,
as well.
exactly. It's
Like-
not a hard target. It's a soft
Yeah, it's
target.
totally
In fact, I believe I read somewhere it fell on a hospital.
Yeah,
like that was
exactly,
so like,
yeah.
and then not that really super
And
mattered in the
even
grand
the people
scheme
who
of
survive,
things.
like the long-lasting
Yeah.
health effects of
That it's killed well over any. I think it really exceeded what they thought it was going to do.
Yeah.
And I think after that, I think the world's like, maybe we'll
just
take
tone it down,
we'll take a yeah.
So there seems to be like a general agreement then that there's been a general shift away from war. It's seen as being, it's maybe quite a callous way to put it, but it's very inconvenient now.
Yeah.
And it's very messy. But is that a noble thing? Are we really not wanting war so much?
I think it's more just...
Or is it just more
I think
difficult now?
publics don't. I think like people don't want war as much after that. I think like if you look at like the wars of at least I'm just going to speak from an American standpoint of the wars of the 20th century, that like there is much more rising like problems on the home front. For example, like Vietnam. Everyone knows that can point to that one as the most famous one, and that's so we started wars became more and more unpopular. And they became like World War II was a big thing for everyone because we were all fighting for a cause, and it seemed like a moral cause.
Like, you can see
Yeah.
who the enemy was.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this has been a thing with sometimes with terrorism as well.
Yeah,
You can see
yeah.
that, but still now it feels like war against terrorism has kind of turned into wars for oil or wars for another purpose, and then now those are becoming more and more unpopular as well. So
Would you say as well that like now that we kind of get into a generation and more people who kind of can't remember any kind of war. They didn't grow up in Vietnam. They didn't go to World War II or whatever. Like, I mean, our generation, we had the war on terror, but that didn't really involve us, actively fighting, a war, say, on our home front. Would you maybe say that kind of it's dangerous that war might get a bit more likely in the coming years as people who can't remember these wars, can't remember how terrible they were, come into power, start making decisions. They don't have that deterrent anymore.
I don't think so. No, because I think as we look at like our demographics, we're growing more and more liberal, and I don't think there's going to be the day like the whole like Make America Great Again. I have this giant powerful army, but like at least again, I'm so sorry to keep speaking from a U.S. standpoint.
You're our guest. I mean, no, that's an interesting question. Do you think America can justify its vast amounts that it's spending on military right now?
I think not. I personally, I don't think we should spend as much as we do on it. I mean, the numbers are just exactly. And
You
I think
spend more than the top
like
10
20,
others
something like that.
or 20 others combined.
Yes, and because I think that we have so many problems on our home front. I mean, there's still that town in Michigan, Flint, Michigan, does not have clean water, and that's been a thing for almost 4 years now. And it just feels like, we know we're the biggest military, but then again, there's like Russia's building up other things as well, and there's never
it's kind of a defensive realist kind of.
It's like a weird thing to hold where you're like, well, I want everyone to be like prosperous and have a nice home front, but also I've never lived in a world where I never feel like, oh, my country is the big one.
Yes, the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
Dwight Eisenhower, I believe, talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's part of the whole like evolution. Like, I hate to bring up Orwell because I feel like I always bring up Orwell.
Bring up some more.
You should bring them up more, really.
I do love Orwell as a writer, but what he says, if you read 1984, is that he looks at the evolution of warfare as well. So he's written it in 1946, I think published in 48 maybe, or it was published in 46. So just after the World War II. And he fought in the Spanish Civil War, which is a very similar kind of warfare to what was fought in World War I and II.
More similar to World War II, I'd say, but
it was more...
A lot of powers feeding into that. Right?
Yeah, it was more industrialized and scaled.
It was, but also, in the Spanish Civil War, of course, a lot of the weapons came from Russia. A lot of the weapons came from Germany,
And the tactics as well were far more resembling of World War II. Obviously, you had the blitzing of various cities.
Yeah.
Guernica,
infamously. Of course, which was kind of on an industrial scale, which was unheard of really beforehand.
Yeah, it was the first... Yeah, regardless, the case that he makes through 1984 is that when he's explaining how they get from 46 to 84, he talks about war as something that is fought by not armies of millions, but by a highly professional, very well trained, extremely well paid minority of people who fight wars in very remote areas near no one. And instead, civilians are, it turns out civilians are bombed by the own government to give the perception that the war is closer to home.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's a limit on information. But the thing that I really took from it is that he gets spot on how warfare has evolved into a profession in that boys do not go off anymore. So, for example, all of us in this room right now, if, Britain went to war tomorrow with someone who wasn't, who couldn't retaliate, as opposed to Afghanistan or Syria, who aren't realistically gonna
come back,
who aren't realistically gonna continue all the way to London. If we were to go to war tomorrow with, say, Russia, would we be drafted? Probably not.
No, yeah, you're right.
Probably not.
It just shows how times change. I mean, had we been born 100 years earlier, we'd probably be dead right now.
Most definitely dead.
I feel like a lot of that comes from technology, though. The sheer vast numbers of soldiers aren't required anymore.
Yeah, no, like you could put a country on its knees by cutting off its electricity supply.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because you don't need to hold a front.
Yeah.
You just need. I mean, because if you can nuke someone, it doesn't matter how many soldiers you have if you can nuke someone.
Well, you don't even have to nuke them. I mean, there's just like drones and things, and now it's just coming to the point where you can have this unmanned warfare, and then
chemical warfare.
Yeah, you can really just keep a whole thing at bay with very few men. It seems nowadays.
Yeah, I think we should talk more about technology afterwards, but I think now we're going to go into our song of the week, which I think Sara has very appropriately. We'll talk about afterwards, but for now, please enjoy the Stranglers. And we're back.
Yes. What a tune that was as well, eh?
Yeah, James, do you want to go and explain?
Yeah. Chosen as tune of the week because I forgot that it was the war week and I didn't pick anything more apt. But so if I told you, Harrison, because you were listening, you were enjoying, you were humming along.
I was humming along.
Some boy, I heard it.
I wasn't listening to the lyrics,
Yeah,
but
we
No,
all
no,
heard
it
it.
won't get in. If I told you that was a punk rock song, what would you say?
yeah, I don't know enough about the genre to make a
Music
claim.
was last week. Let it go.
Okay, I will. But it's just that song's interesting because that group, they were students, and they were very well educated, and it's interesting because they are considered one of the largest punk rock bands, but they weren't punks in the slightest. They were biochemists.
Wow, that doesn't sound cool at all. Not gonna
No,
lie.
but they are cool dudes. Anyway,
They're mad because their building burnt down.
indeed.
Boys.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Oh, Spicey Ricey. Right.
Small claims.
I love it. Yeah, get that into the small claims.
Sorry, I was busy trying to fix the mic.
Yeah, do you want to replay that claim for Shorus's benefit?
I know, but he said they're biochemists, and I said they're mad because their building burnt down.
Oh.
And it's just
Oh, Mr. Sir,
It's
Mr.
not
Sir.
a claim.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
It's not a claim. It's not a claim.
It's a fact. I suppose it is a fact.
It's a
All
fact. I
right.
mean, it's a tasteless fact, but it's a fact.
It's a fact to fact. Knowledge is knowledge. We shouldn't poo-poo it.
I guess it didn't burn down. It just,
Partial destruction.
it's,
You know?
out of action. for
their
18
life's
months.
work is fine. I read the email.
Some of the
Yeah.
life's work.
What? I
One or
thought all
two
of it.
people's. I got the impression from the email that one or two people, they've lost a few years.
All right. Well, that's on me.
40 years in some cases.
Oh no.
Are you saying? Okay. Well, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, 7 listeners.
Hey.
I hope it wasn't one of you guys.
So is it? Okay, we'll just get back into war then. So,
Yeah, come
Harrison,
on,
what's your favorite war?
What's my favorite
Your
war?
favorite war
Wow.
That is a great question.
in the history of
on
all
the way
wars.
over.
I mean,
here.
surely every war is a tragedy, you know.
Of course they are. Of course they are. They're all
Life
awful.
cut
But
short in
Harrison,
their prime.
which one's your favorite?
What's my favorite? Oh, jeez.
It can be any war. It can be fictitious if you want it to
Any
be.
war. I like the Spanish American because it makes us look cool, but
Ooh.
it's pretty
Is that when
imperialist.
you took Cuba and
It's
Philippines?
Cuba and the Philippines.
Like
Yeah,
for
that was
Admiral
pretty, That
Seward.
was pretty imperialist.
Yeah.
The Empire.
It was
It
up
totally
there.
was, but it was taking it from another empire.
Yeah, so that's fine.
So who's to say?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. We just balance each other. I mean,
So yeah,
yeah.
Spain killed Peru. So
Do you know what about you? What's your
Well, I mean,
favorite war?
as a proud Englishman, you've got to love the Battle of Agincourt, 1415.
Oh, of course.
Another 4-1 against the French.
yeah, we
Yeah.
feud.
Henry V.
we
It's
few, we
become
happy
some
few.
legend now,
Yeah.
but yeah, Shorus is grimacing to my left.
Well, I'm just saying that's not a war.
It's
It was a wider war with France, right?
Yeah,
They were always
It's a wider war.
Yeah,
like, what was that? Like the 100 years?
Yeah,
like,
I believe it's
lost
100
horribly.
years.
100 years. Well,
Right.
it was a good point, a good flashpoint.
Okay then, Shorey.
You lost all of France.
If you're
During
taking
this
so
day?
many shapes out of Perdino over there, Shorey, what's your favorite
I'll
war?
probably go Scottish Wars of Independence
Oh.
2020. No,
Of course.
Yeah, how did that work for you?
The boy
400
was
years
born
later,
in England
sorry,
as well.
we join, oh.
no,
No.
That's not my favourite war. That's not my favourite war.
Okay, what's your favorite war then, son?
I don't know. I've studied many.
Yeah, all right, calm down.
Yeah.
All right, we get it. Your history, boy. Like,
At the moment, I'd say it's probably. I'm gonna go the Arab conquest.
Oh, okay, right. Follow-up question to everyone. If you have, I'll give you a magical choice, right? I'll give you £1,000, but in return, you need to go fight in that war, your favorite war. Would you do it?
Oh, I totally would.
no, absolutely not. That sounds terrifying.
Sure.
I definitely would.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
You would not. That's such a
Okay,
claim.
case in point, right? So this is 7th century. Okay, they go from owning Mecca and Medina to owning an empire that goes from Afghanistan to Spain.
Yeah, but like. It's
Okay,
like
wait, it's right.
Saudi
Okay.
Arabia.
40 years.
It's also £1,000, so I'll make it like £100,000.
And because it's justified as jihad against heathens, I'm guaranteed salvation
Okay.
if I die.
What does that look like, though? You don't know what life after death's gonna.
I'm
bring.
fine. That's,
Wait,
this
isn't
brilliant.
Muhammad
And
there
also, like,
too?
100,000
He's
pounds
dead by
in-
this point.
Oh damn it.
£100,000 in Arabian 8th century, economic terms.
I would become. I could start my own caliphate.
Yeah, you could start
You
IBM.
probably could.
The Lyle Caliphate, yeah. Lyle the Great.
Yeah, Lyle Calvin.
Also, you would like roast in like Saudi Arabia in the 7th century.
Yeah,
You
well,
just appreciate that.
the Middle East.
You'd
is
be
very di-
allowed to bring tons of sunscreen
The
from
Middle East
modern
would be-
day.
bear in mind, I wouldn't be fighting much in the Arabian Peninsula. I'd be fighting in North Africa,
Oh
Persia.
yeah, like really, really chilly up there. Like,
Persian mountains are quite.
Libya right here is really, yeah.
The Persian mountains are quite nice. They're quite temperate.
Yeah. Skiing in Algeria, that's something else.
The Al Borz mountain range apparently is very nice around this
These
time of
very
year for
specific
skiing.
places, sure. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Fantastic.
Yeah, northern Iran, mountains about.
again, specific places.
Yeah.
Maybe start your caliph in the Iranian mountains. I don't know.
What I'd fight in that campaign.
Okay.
You can all pray to whatever.
You're saying you wouldn't have fought at Agincourt.
For £100,000.
Sounds terrible. Like
They
yeah,
said
but all the soldiers were like hungry and like thirsty.
you
Tino,
wish
you can
yourself
go without a
you'd,
pint
like,
of
what was
Moretti
it-
for
what's
about
the
5 minutes,
Shakespeare
can't you?
line? It's like
They were genuinely thirsty.
you would
That was
think
awful.
yourself cursed if you weren't there. I believe is like the Shakespeare line. I feel like
Please invoke St.
yeah,
Crispian's
yeah,
name.
exactly.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're getting an arrow through the chest as well. I mean, I'd also be pretty cursed if that happened.
Oh, but does that not even make you like tear up a little bit? It makes me even tear up. I'm
It
not
does.
even
It
an
does make me
Englishman.
tear up.
Oh,
but
come
also,
on.
like, I think it's been glorified over centuries of
Who would have thought? Medieval history being used for modern purposes without any proper context or appreciation of the facts.
Mm.
Sorry.
It's fine. Like I didn't study it, sure. It's like I've just gone off legend.
Indeed. Well, 15th century is too late for me now.
Oh, are you done with that?
Oh, I'm
He's
done.
an old boy.
You're done.
Oh.
Oh, it's too modern for you.
Everything
these
after-
these kids in their 15th century history. Oh, too new.
Everything before the plague is politics.
Okay,
Wow,
fair
that's
enough.
What?
Okay.
So
We'll see how that works.
I'll just-
Someone flash up the document.
someone else. Yeah, I'll put that in the document. Sorry, that's too much.
Okay, right. So, Shoris, you got some more history war topic prompts for us?
Liam,
Shall I just
this is a
continue to make
natural
them up?
debate I have, you know.
Okay, right. That's okay.
We didn't
You
make
don't
them
need
up.
prompts.
No, I made that last one up.
It was a good question. We let it run.
They get more ridiculous as they come.
Let it run, Liam. Let that boy run. Let the boys play.
Okay. What's my favorite war? That's a good question.
You never said your favourite war.
Yeah. It could possibly be the Spanish Civil War. I spent a couple of years in school learning about it, through choice even. Because in a semi-democratic move, we voted on the war we wanted to do. And I ran a bit of a Spanish Civil War campaign.
Semi-democratic.
What would the-
You stormed in there and demanded the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah.
It's like he demanded fascism.
Exactly. And I won. The same way.
Kind of like Franco, yeah.
You won. You won the day.
I did. The Day of Days.
Wait, what were the other wars that were on the agenda?
I can't even remember now. There
one-
was many of them. It was like all the...
San Miguel, you know, to
Yeah.
bond with the Spanish roots.
You know
Actually,
it.
I'll tell you what, the Algerian Civil War. Now that is a spicy
That was
war.
an incredibly messy war.
Yeah, I would not have fought in that.
Horrible.
No.
I would definitely not have thought of that.
As
That
wars
was not.
go, that's definitely down.
That was really
Well,
not
here's an interesting question. Instead of asking what the messiest, to use a word you use there, Deal, the messiest war was, which war would you least like to participate in?
Okay.
How's there any
Dum,
debate in
bum,
this
bum.
answer?
But what is it, Shores?
Easily the First World War.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Oh, First World
I
War.
think
it's
they're
good.
probably worse than the
Well,
first
I've
one.
been to tea in the park, so I know what trench foot's like firsthand. You can get over it. It's
Wait,
fine.
Do you disagree, Harrison?
You can get
No,
over
I'm
it.
on-
You
no,
just get
I-
over, like,
You just
a
got to cut.
trench foot
You got to
or
cut your foot off, and
shell
that's
shock.
it.
I don't know. There's like I feel like Napoleon's invasion of Russia is probably pretty lame.
I think, yeah, being a German soldier in Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Actually-
I went to
Without
the
your winter parka as
to
well.
the I went to the
Yeah.
Imperial War Museum the other day, and they have
Canada
they
Goose.
literally have baskets they had to wear over their feet. It was so cold. Yeah. It sounds pretty lame.
Wait, where were you seeing this, Harrison?
In London, I went to the Imperial War Museum, and they had a German like winter uniform,
museum.
and it looked so miserable to be wearing. It just did not look warm enough, and they had baskets for your shoes to go over your leather boots. I was like,
Jeez.
oh my god! They said it was like 30 degrees below centigrade or something like that. Ugh.
I still think
Nippy, bit nippy.
still think
Bit
Pa-
like St Andrews today.
I think Passchendaele would be worse, to be honest.
You think?
Yeah, I think the mud and also the shells, and also the likelihood that you survive.
That's true.
I think that would be the worst one. I mean, this is all modern. Bear in mind.
It almost gets to the point though where you'd rather just be killed instantly than have to sort of suffer through that and die eventually.
Yeah, I always think I get worried about Vietnam a lot too, because at least I feel like that's like the scary. If you read like the books from it and the guys who are like in there and they said no one
Yeah.
wanted to walk in front because you're gonna step on something and it's really gonna hurt and you're gonna die and they're gonna booby trap your body and then your friends are gonna die coming to find you and it felt like I remember a guy came to talk to our class when I was in high school and he was talking about His friend went on patrol or something, died. They found him. He turned over his body, and something blew up and like really hurt him. And he started bawling in the middle class, like a 6-year-old man. That sounds like the saddest shit I've ever heard in my life. I don't want to do that.
I mean, I feel like Vietnam especially, this might be a bit of a claim, but I feel like in pop culture it's been romanticized a bit too much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like-
Everyone looks back in the 60s as like a glorious...
Yeah, just sitting there.
Fortunate Son plays,
Fortunate
and a
Son.
helicopter.
Yeah.
And, you know, anti-war movement.
Yeah, you can smoke some cool weed.
But then you
no.
watch Apocalypse Now, and it's
like,
3
oh,
hours of you getting your butt kicked, you know.
Yeah.
Would you say romanticize is the right term, though?
Probably not, because it's hardly romanticized. But it's
Glorified, I think.
not even glorified. It's just played down a lot.
I think it's actually like
Sanitized.
definitely,
Sanitized.
yeah.
There
So
we go.
the other guy,
Not so messy.
I took this class about Vietnam. That's why all these guys were coming in. Another guy came in who was an officer, and he said, "Yeah, so I would have to I wouldn't follow orders, because if you followed orders and took your men out on what they knew was a really dangerous patrol, where many of them would have probably died, they would kill you. Like they would kill their officers and say, "Oh, he got killed in an ambush." So they were like, "Yeah," and I liked my guys, and I didn't want them to
So
die.
it's like, so it's just carnage. It's
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and they would
That's
just they would
insane.
just describe these things, these like idiotic moves by the U.S. government over and over again. There's something called Eagle's Flight, where they'd say like they drop a unit in the middle of nowhere and they sit them there until someone attacked them, and then when someone attacked them, they'd bring everyone to attack the thing that was attacking them.
Well,
But
it's
it
like
said,
gorillaing the gorilla.
yeah, kind of, but it never worked.
It's like gorilla squared.
The bait unit would always get fully wiped out,
Yeah,
and they said it was like
I
the
would not
saddest
be in
thing
that
to
unit.
watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
They said they would never get anyone. They'd be like, "Oh, that was a real waste of life." Anyway, so that might be the one.
Well,
I
like
don't wanna
it's
go
easy
for.
to forget, but there's a reason that it went so badly for the Americans.
Oh yeah,
And that's
for sure.
because it was just complete insanity.
Well, I think to go back to the word that we're using, I think it's become mythic. Is the word that I think of.
It's
Yeah.
not about mythic. I think there's still a big generation of people that fought in it and still remember.
But
it.
even
Give it a few years.
even like just the basic facts seem like really difficult to establish. Like there are those who think, well, there's like it seems. Well, I guess partisan's the word actually. It's either like
Yes.
we had to go in there. We had to stop the domino effect. We had to stop Vietnam falling to the communists.
you're describing my grandfather. And this summer, it was a really sad thing this summer, because I was talking to him about it, and he was really lamenting. He sounded really sad. I always thought, oh, he's very anti-war. He said, well, it really was sad because we just didn't have a president that was willing to go farther enough. And he's talking about Lyndon B. Johnson. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, we could have bombed their dams. We could have poisoned all their water. We could have done everything, and we would have won that war. I was like, and I was said, oh, this is my grandfather, so I'm not going to say, hey, that's millions of lives lost on top of the 2 million that we already killed while we were over there. And I wasn't going to challenge him, but that was low key, kind of going for some war crimes there, Gramps.
Yeah. Well, I had something similar when, but on a different scale. Like my granddad his father was in World War One. Very luckily broke his fibia from a bullet. So just
that is a lucky escape.
very lucky.
That is, if I could break my anything from a bullet, it would be that.
So he had to get obviously.
Yeah, a nice honourable discharge.
Well, yeah.
Indeed.
He had to. Well, he missed the rest of the war.
So when was
Gutted.
this?
19. I think he fought at the Somme and the Third Ypres.
Okay.
Oh,
He did it.
I mean, that's quite a resume.
Yeah.
So he
you
did.
know.
He did a shift. I think this was at the Third Ypres, but the story changed eventually with time. And he said, because I was studying World War One at school, and I was looking at causes of the First World War.
Yeah.
And so I remember trying to explain to him why it was fought, and for him it was just nothing went in. I was like, I don't know. None of it.
So what was his perception?
Well,
of
here's
it?
the-
Kaiser was like
his,
terrible.
his perspective was there was no reason whatsoever for any of the carnage,
Really?
for any of the
I
conflicts.
precisely agree with that. Yeah.
Well,
Absolute waste of time.
Compared to what has, well, not what we're taught in school. In school, we're taught why it escalated to the extent it did and why Britain got involved. But I think now, I think the state of politics anyway leads to any kind of divisive statement is just perpetuated to a platform that it becomes encouraged to say something ridiculous. Now there started to be more of a debate of actually it was worthwhile.
Right.
I remember certainly in November there were, I think, was it Niall Ferguson came out and said we were absolutely right to have intervened in Belgium and
Right.
things like that. And so trying to explain to my grandpa was like, well, this is what people say, and he was just having none of it.
I mean, I think to some extent,
I'm
though,
with your grandfather there, surely, yeah.
to some extent, though, is that just because for us learning about it, and like today, but also in recent years, like the last 10 years in which we learned about it, the idea that it could have not happened seems crazy because it did happen.
And it shapes.
It was
so
100
much.
years ago.
It shapes so much.
It's influenced so much. So if someone says to us today, you know, oh, World War One should have never happened, we're like, yeah, but also no, because it did
Imagine a
happen.
world without World War One.
There would be no shores.
Yeah, this is
Neatly timed.
kind of like a similar thing. I just want to get this in real quickly. I was having this conversation about like the atomic bomb. We already talked about the atomic bomb, but I'll talk about it one more second. So my great grandfather was a forward engineer in the Marines, in the U.S. Marines. So he's fighting Japan, and he was off the coast of Japan towards the end of the war. And he's on his boat, and he was thinking to himself, "Oh my God, I'm going to die. They're going to send me in." And he had to go like look at the landscape and how they would attack or whatever and how they would push forward. And so those guys were like, they had a very high mortality rate, and he knew that, and he knew he was like a week away from being sent in, and then they dropped the bomb, and then he didn't have to go. And I think and I used to argue that the atomic bomb was ridiculous. The atomic bomb is like, we could have negotiated, and there is like sources that say, oh, they would have given up if they could keep their guy on the throne, of their emperor on the throne. But I have to say that I definitely wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for the atomic bomb.
The atomic bomb gets a lot of stick, but I think it did.
Yeah,
It saved a lot of lives as well than compared to say a land invasion of Japan.
Yeah,
true.
Imagine
exactly.
the amount of lives that would have got.
It's the butterfly effect again, but like
Yeah.
It has become more and more
there's something
divisive.
about war. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a necessary evil is how I would describe it.
Yeah, and has become the fundamental point from which all conflict is changed from there on in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what a nice point to perhaps move into our final segment then,
Okay.
looking at our freaks of the week.
Oh,
good.
I believe,
I like
I believe Harrison has got an absolute zinger for us this week.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah.
blow us
Yeah.
all away, my friend.
King Mithridates VI was a king of Pontus, and he was fighting against the Romans, and he was eventually beat by Pompey. It's very famous. Anyway, so he was upset that he got beaten, and he went north, and he tried to raise another army, but the nobles up there did not like that, and they rebelled, and he tried to kill himself. But little known fact, I guess it's actually a pretty well known fact, never mind. He was very paranoid of being poisoned throughout his entire life, so he took small non-lethal amounts of poison throughout his entire life. So then when the nobles rebelled, he tried to kill himself with poison, but since he was immune to poison, he took a ton of it. He couldn't kill himself, but he got really weak, and he tried to kill himself with a sword, but he was so weak from the poison he took that he couldn't kill himself, and then they all ran in and murdered him. And it's
Well, he got there in the end.
yeah, I mean, he did get what he wanted. He was immune to poison, but it was really too bad for him.
It was a downfall. In the
Yeah,
end.
freak of the week.
Sad.
Yeah.
Freak of the week, freak of the week, freak of the week.
That's
Yeah, you
very
got-
good.
Kind of, but also not. Do you know if you've got something more spicy you can fire in the
Pope
pan?
Pope John XII, who was Pope from 954 to 964. Obviously, you know, popes are expected to live an incredibly pious life. You know, abstain from temptation and all. He was famous for hosting drunken sex parties.
Yes.
And was killed when he was discovered in the bed of another man's wife.
That's
So yeah,
oh,
as popes go,
the
not
Pope's
best.
the Pope's sleeping
Or
with my
the
wife.
best. It depends on which way
Oh
you
my
look at it.
God, the Pope is literally sleeping with my wife.
Yeah.
What
What are you doing in that
Like,
situation?
who do you
Like-
tell that
like-
to? He's
I
God's
mean,
messenger on
I'm
earth.
pretty angry, but also it's the Pope. Like, what can I do?
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing.
Shores, what about you? Have you got
I'll
a
go
freak?
for Hassani Isaba.
Oh, shock.
Just
Another Middle East
yeah.
figure.
Just I guess he's not a freak, but he's just a cool dude.
A pretty cool cat.
He founded a movement that became known as the Assassins. They were based out of northern Persia.
Hey.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
became a very prominent movement in essentially killing anyone who was important in Persia and the Middle East in the 12th century. And he founded that movement in the Castle of Alamut. And it's been long misconstrued by Crusader historians as kind of like these bonkers people who are like high on hash and just
Oh.
killing anyone.
Yeah.
But actually, they're a very complex movement with very ideological and religiously motivated theorems and theology.
Mortal
Yeah.
enemies of the Templars.
Yeah.
Anyone? No.
Pretty spicy.
Anyone?
Yeah, they're
Alright. Assassin's Creed, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that.
they,
Yes.
they killed Nizam al-Mulk and possibly even the Seljuk Sultan himself.
Oh my goodness me.
Spicy note to finish on
I know.
with
Well,
Spicey Ricey.
you've heard of Nizam al-Mulk.
Oh,
I've
of course
totally
I
heard of
have.
I
this.
probably
Nizam
have at some
al-Mulk.
point in Middle
I
East.
What would the
quoted
man himself
Nizam
say?
al-Mulk. Yes.
Yeah, Seljuk Sultanate at the Battle of Manzikert.
You know it.
Yes. Anyway,
So is that us?
on that note,
But before we wrap up, real quick, just if you enjoyed this, go to the Hi Guys History Podcast
yes,
YouTube
yes,
channel.
YouTube, yeah,
We have
YouTube
all the
channel.
past episodes except some of them up there. There's a few. Listen to
it's
them.
not our fault they weren't up there. You know.
There was mistakes
Tried
made.
our best, but-
So if you're looking for the link, just go to the Facebook page. If not, just type in Hi Guys History and it might come up.
Sure, wait, did you say your figure of the week?
Shira, conscientiously objective.
I can do it. I can do it real
Good
quick if you
Vietnam
want.
theme.
That's right.
Not
It was the
like
Elephant Man.
1915,
That's it. It was all about the Elephant Man. But now we're too late. Now you're not going to get to hear about it.
Okay.
Special thanks to our guest this week, Mr. Spicey Ricey himself.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me. Yeah.
We'll see you again same time next week.
Tune in.
Mr. Lyle?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Russia,
Who knows?
Russia, Russia.
Elephant Man
Same
all week.
surprise. Thank you all. Thank
Yes.
you all. Have a great week.
I hope you all
Goodbye.
enjoyed our topic about war and to play us out. What is it good for?